All right, so it's been an eventful new year, I guess, let's call it. Today is January 7th, 2021, and yesterday we had all the stuff going on at the Capitol, but it wasn't just that. It wasn't just storming the Congress. The Congress did end up certifying the 270 votes for Biden, so quasi-officially, he's the guy. And also last night, at like, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, the Treasury Department released interim final rules for PPP round two. So that's the updated Paycheck Protection Program, which is administered by the SBA, and they released this document, let's call it. And so it's 82 pages, but I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I'm just going to highlight a couple things here to keep aware of. So let's go to eligible. So this is the key thing. Are you eligible for PPP? So if you already got PPP round one back in the spring of 2020, spring into summer, then you have to demonstrate that revenues are below comparable quarter for the prior year. So like if Q4 2020 was bad, then compared to Q4 2019, then you should be able to get a second draw. But otherwise, everybody else, you can reapply or apply for the first time for PPP round one. They're just reauthorizing the funds available for the program. So you have to be a small business, which means 500 or fewer employees. You can be an independent contractor or an eligible self-employed, sole proprietor kind of person, and you have to have a business concern. There are other things. I mean, you can be housing cooperative or a news organization. I mean, that's pretty edge case stuff. And then you have to submit sufficient documentation to establish eligibility and to demonstrate the qualifying payroll amount, which may include, as applicable, payroll proceeds, payroll tax filings, Form 1099 miscellaneous, which no longer exists. It's actually 1099 NEC, Schedule C or F, income and expenses from sole proprietorship or bank records. So you can't just say like, yeah, I'm sole proprietor. You got to actually prove it a little bit to the bank. That's all stuff. So, a lot of people have Schedule C unincorporated businesses or LLCs that are disregarded entities for tax purposes, which still go on a Schedule C. So all those kind of things. You have to have net profit though. So if you have a loss, that's not going to be applicable so much. You are going to have to use 2020 as your baseline in most cases for your loan amounts. And let's see, what are some other good questions here? Oh, if you're a seasonal business, this applies to some people. You have to be in operation for at least 12 weeks. As of going back over the last year. Important thing, when they updated the funding for the program, they did not change the dates compared to the original PPP law. So what that means is that you have to have been in business before or operating as of February 15th, 2020. So I have a couple clients, I emailed them this morning, where they started new businesses in 2020, in May and August and things like that. And under the regulations as they are at this moment, they are not going to be eligible for PPP. And why they didn't update that to include people who are forming new businesses in 2020, I don't know. You have to ask your congressman about that one. That seems like nonsense to me. Let's see. This is industry specific stuff. So you are ineligible if you get money from activity that is illegal under federal, state, or local law. This is your Al Capone provision, where the IRS doesn't really care if the things you do is illegal or not, as long as you file your taxes. So if you so interesting here, if you are in the cannabis business, those are still illegal under federal law, which is why you can't deduct expenses. So the 280E provisions there. So household employers, so like if you have your nanny on payroll, that does not qualify. If 20% or more equity holder in your business is presently incarcerated for a felony or subject to an indictment, criminal information, and so on, you are not eligible. A lot of law firms might be in trouble there. I kid. Here's the your business organization was not in operation on February 15th, 2020. And if you're getting money under other programs like the shuttered venue operator grant, that will so that money takes precedence over PPP, so that doesn't apply. Um, if you're in bankruptcy currently, you're not going to be approved for PPP. And let's see. I mean, otherwise, not too much has changed. So how much can you borrow? So under the PPP, the maximum loan amount for first draw PPP loans is the lesser of $10 million or an amount that you calculate using the payroll formula. And so the payroll formula is you aggregate the payroll costs from 2019 or 2020. So at this point, we're going to be dealing primarily with 2020, for employees who are in the U.S. So if you're paying overseas people, they don't count. You subtract any compensation paid to an employee in excess of 100,000. So so in other words, if you pay somebody a salary of 150, then you only get to count 100 of it. And then you calculate the average monthly payroll and multiply that by 2.5. And also, this is an interesting one. You can refinance any EIDL loans made between January 31st and April 3rd, 2020 that you seek to refinance, which is a fun little thing you can do. So, there are different terms. EIDL has a higher interest rate, but a longer payback period. PPP loans, if they're not forgiven, are 2 years of 1% interest. So you'd have to weigh the pros and cons as to whether that would make sense for you to refi. And you can go through the examples. You got to provide, 941s and Schedule Cs and that kind of thing if you're self-employed. And basically, the only difference between Schedule C and a payroll is that you take the average monthly net profit from your Schedule C. And if you haven't filed your 2020 taxes yet, which nobody has, you would have to come up with a constructed P&L off bank statements and that kind of thing. So 2.5 months worth of loan, and then what can you use it for? That is down here. It's basically effectively it's payroll, it's rent, it's mortgage interest, not mortgage principal payments. Let's see, there was more. Payroll. You can see that this really is 83 pages. PPP is 5 years. Sorry, not 2 years. Let's see. How it can be used. Payroll costs related to continuation of group healthcare, life, disability, vision, dental, mortgage interest, but not mortgage principal or mortgage prepayments, rent, utilities, interest payments on any other debt obligations that were incurred before February 15th, 2020, refinancing an SBA EIDL loan, covered operations expenses. So this is, your normal kind of, SG&A kind of stuff. And covered property damage costs if you had some rioting in 2020, like if you're a business in Portland or Seattle, one of those. Covered supplier costs, so expenditures made by a borrower to a supplier of goods for supply of goods that are essential to the operations of the borrower at the time at which the expenditure is made is, pursuant to a contract, order, and purchase order. And we're already, in effect. You can't go out and buy like brand new stuff, but things you generally need and you have for a while are fine. Worker protection expenditures, that's your masks and your filtrations and all that kind of stuff. And at least 60% of the PPP loans shall be used for payroll costs, and this is in order to be forgiven later on. Similar kind of things with Schedule C filers, but payroll is basically owner compensation replacement, which is fine. So that is kind of the quick update. And obviously you're gonna have to approve all this to the bank's satisfaction with records and so forth. So the steps are that interim final rule is issued by Treasury, which is this. Then SBA has to update their guidelines for the banks. Then the banks have to create their application processes. So I'm expecting, let's see, it's January 7th. So I think within a week, we'll see the banks actually rolling out. You do have to apply by March 31st of 2021. So it's not a huge window. In addition to this, in addition to PPP, EIDL is also being revamped. So be on the lookout for that. If you applied you know, back in 2020 didn't get approved or didn't get the full amount, then there may be, you know, extra opportunity for you here shortly. So that is the quick, uh, I don't know how quick, but fairly quick version of the PPP updates from the Treasury.